Driving forces behind commercial television included some flamboyant figures, such as the ATV chairman Lou Grade, charismatic, colourful and clairvoyant.
You have to understand at that time that there were no other Lou Grades. Lou Grade was ahead of his time. He was an old-fashioned man in many ways, doing the Charleston and being the Sam Golden with the big cigar and all that. But underneath all that, he had got high intelligence but gut feelings. He had a sensitivity. He could see the future.
And for Grade, the future was the work of producer and director Gerry Anderson. In the 1950s, he'd enjoyed some success with more traditional puppet shows. But by the early 1960s, Anderson and his wife Sylvia were about to embark on a string of futuristic series whose subject matter and production techniques would revolutionise children's television. In 1962, Gerry Anderson's AP Films produced Fireball XL5. Featuring the adventures of Steve Zodiac and his organisation, the World Space Patrol, it was another huge hit for commercial TV.
Well, it torpedoed the BBC. We were taking 70%, sometimes 75% of the audience, and the BBC were taking 30, 25. And they were shocked to the core. They couldn't understand what had happened to them.
Now we know what we're up against, Steve.
Fireball XL5's financial success spawned a series of increasingly sophisticated follow-ups. Profits were ploughed back into technical improvement and state-of-the-art special effects. The characters may have been puppets and the stories set in the future, but they undoubtedly captured the mood of the times.
The spy, adventure, secret agent story is very voguish in the 1960s. This is a time of heightened international uncertainty and tension, and so Cold War stories are very popular.
You are trying to tell me that a 9-year-old boy climbed into the cockpit of the world's most advanced aircraft and flew it away?
You have ready-made villains that they're bureaucratic, they're totalitarian, they're attempting to subvert our way of life, our free democratic lifestyles and institutions.
Oh, Commander! Dismiss.
I think we are always influenced by things around. There's nothing original at all. And I think that, again, your writers are reacting to what's happening around them. No one's consciously copying anyone, but you have a sense of what is right for that particular time.
It was with Thunderbirds, first broadcast by Grade's ATV in 1964, that Sylvia Anderson believed they reached their creative pinnacle. Set 100 years in the future, the series chronicles the adventures of international rescue, dedicated to safeguarding the free world.
I think that writers, if you look at the things with James Bond era and so on, it was very much the spy, the glamour, the girls.
Running at an unprecedented 50 minutes, the episodes allowed Sylvia to develop characters and themes never previously explored in children's puppet shows.
Have you made the reservations on the night train to Underbird?
Yes, milady.
One character in particular stood out.
Lady Penelope Crichton Ward, hyphenated. The reason I chose someone with the title Lady Penelope, was quite a commercial decision because it appealed to the Americans. Because at that time, in that era, they thought everyone was either a Cockney or lord or landed gentry.
Sylvia Anderson was close to her creation in more ways than one. Modelled to resemble her physically, her character was also based on her own experiences, leading to the puppet world's first feminist icon.
been listening at my door. Come along quietly so as not to waken the other passengers.
One of the things that I think influenced me personally was that I was that rare person in those days of a woman, executive, proactive with the productions, involved from every aspect with a group of men.
What did you want with my suitcase?
I was merely ascertaining which passengers would be getting off at Thunderbird.
Lady Penelope is perhaps introduced as an identification figure for girls. Yes, she's wealthy, but she's also characterised as being very independent, as being very intelligent, as being very cool under pressure, like other secret agent characters in the 1960s.
Sir Jeremy Hodge, isn't he the scientific gentleman?
At the other end of the social spectrum, there was Parker, Lady Penelope's chauffeur.
On one of her prison visits, she met up with Parker. And of course, she took Parker under her wing. But she was quite canny because she knew that Parker had lots of contacts with the underworld. And she might need him for a bit of safe cracking or something like that in her capacity as London agent for international rescue.
Parker will have us out of here in no time.
I say, open this door at once. We're British.
Come in, Parker. Come in, Parker. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Keep a lookout for a stranger.
Lady Penelope is a blue-blooded aristocrat, but her manservant Parker is a reformed criminal. And the relationship between the two is in certain ways perhaps a metaphor for social change and the collapsing of certain class differences in Britain during the 1960s.
Whatever the subtext, the combination of advanced puppet techniques, live-action sequences and tightly written scripts was unlike anything else on screen at the time.
It's working.
Because they're only using puppets,
It's working.
they were probably quite small alligators or caimans or something. But by putting these big alligators in with the little puppets, they created these giant alligators. And it was a sort of haunted house thing set in the sort of Florida swamps, I think, or the Louisiana swamps.
Where the alligators would not move at all. And one handler came along and gave a little tiny electric shock. We were reported to the RSPCA or something like that. But it was, in fact, a fantastic movie.
Firing missile!
Colourful, action-packed and full of knowing adult references, the Andersons' output appealed to grown-ups and children alike.
And the one thing I think we achieved that we really wanted to do was to make it a family show. It was a kidult show. So Lady Penelope, obviously, for the girls. The boys, obviously, they related to all the Tracy characters. So the Americans coined the phrase kidult. And I think that really summed it up very well. And it was a series that your aunt, your maiden aunt could sit down, your grandmother, whatever, and no one really was offended, unless you were really looking for something to be offended by. But I think that it was a fun show.
But for the BBC,